Well, welcome everyone and happy Monday. My name is Tracy Murphy Poxtis, and this is Good to Great in Under 8, the weekly show for mid to senior level business professionals who want to start cracking the code on how to have more successful and fulfilling careers. So I'm wondering if you're someone who is just never satisfied with your work, meaning no matter what, you just never feel like you've delivered your all. Or are you someone who's beaten yourself up time and time again over some failures, maybe even the smallest of mistakes? Or are you someone who's worried so much about whether or not you're going to actually be able to achieve your goals that you actually feel weighed down when you start thinking about these goals? Well, if you said yes to any of these things, it's likely that you have some degree of what's known as unhealthy perfectionism within you. And it's not to say that unhealthy perfectionism is completely bad. However, it is something that if it continues and it grows, at some point it will likely impede you from achieving your overall career goals. So let me start by just talking a little bit about what unhealthy perfectionism is. And it's actually characterized by three things. First, it's about having an excessive preoccupation with control and past mistakes. It's also about having a lot of doubt as to whether or not you're doing something right. And it's also characterized a lot by being overly concerned about meeting your own high expectations or meeting the expectations of other people. So for example, someone with unhealthy perfectionism might be somebody who might get sick to their stomach right before a big presentation because they're so worried that their presentation isn't going to deliver on the audience's expectation. And they get themselves so sick that by the time they actually deliver their presentation, maybe they didn't deliver the best one possible. Another example might be somebody who decides not to apply for a promotion because they don't believe they've truly earned it. Instead, they believe, that the work that they've done just wasn't really good enough to get them promoted. It wasn't at that high enough level. Now, maybe you haven't experienced any of these type of situations or these characteristics, but what I can tell you is that if you continue to operate with these types of characteristics over an extended period of time, it inevitably is going to lead to really, really high levels of stress and anxiety. And at some point, it can really start impacting your own degree of self-worth. And so all of those things together are really going to work against you when you're trying to create a successful and truly fulfilling career. So it obviously raises the question, what do we do about it? And there are several tools available to help with reducing the unhealthy perfectionism tendencies. And so today I thought I'd just share three of my favorites with you that have worked really well for me in the past and have also worked really well for many of my clients. And so the first one is what I call practice good enough. Right now, I'm not saying slack off, right? What I am saying is do really good work. And at the same time, also start to recognize for yourself when your work has reached good enough. And good enough, guys, is that point where continuing to do more isn't really going to get you anymore, isn't going to deliver better results, right? It's that point when you start focusing on all the little details that don't really add any additional value. And so finding that point isn't easy, but if you start paying attention and being more mindful of that point, and you're willing to try a little bit of trial and error, you will find that point. And then the second tool that I'm a strong proponent of is to stop thinking in terms of mistakes and really start practicing some self-compassion and start thinking with more of a growth mindset. So perfectionists are notoriously intolerant of any kind of flaw in any kind of shortcoming, right? They see anything less than perfection as pure failure. But self-criticism and that kind of black and white thinking, right? It's either good or it's failure, really isn't helpful, right? And it isn't serving you in achieving your goals. It is going to help you so much more if you really start practicing some of that self-compassion. And that starts by accepting the fact that nobody is perfect, including you. And try being kind to yourself, right? Try being as kind to yourself as you are to maybe friends and colleagues, right, when they make errors. And then along these same lines, guys, is the idea of really redefining what the word mistake means. Did you know that the actual definition of the word mistake is actually, if you look it up in the dictionary, it says it's a judgment that is misguided or wrong. And that's crazy, right? It's actually a judgment, meaning somebody is labeling something as misguided or wrong. And I always wonder, like, what if we just stopped labeling mistakes as wrong or as bad? And we started thinking about them as, hey, a mistake is nothing more than an expected part of the learning process. And it's something that has to happen in order for us to achieve our goals, right? To me, that's going to help us really move ourselves forward and let us focus on the positive aspects of what we've learned. And then the last tool, and one of my favorite tools, guys, is not to define yourself by your accomplishments. So you are not what you accomplish. You are who you are because of what you are at your core. So starting to really recognize that your value is not dependent on what you accomplish, but it's rather based on who you are as a person is going to go a long way. Because if you base it on your accomplishments, you're just always going to try and achieve more and more and more and more, and you're never going to be happy with who you are. So today, guys, I hope you've become a little bit more aware around what unhealthy perfectionism is, that it does exist, and that it absolutely can be managed, and that there's lots of tools out there to do it. And so if this is something that's popping up for you and you want some help, definitely reach out to me. Shoot me an email at tracy@tracymurphycoaching.com, and we will get a conversation started.